finally mostly fixed my streaming stuff, but unfortunately, I just need a better computer eventually.
Okay. You and me both.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Well, I had one that broke on me. Now I need to replace it, but oh well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing about the DashDirect deal is too bad they don't have Amazon yet, because that would be really cool. That would be really cool to be able to save some money doing that kind of stuff. About an hour ago, I got someone saying, "What time is Joel and Dr. Tapp?" Well, guess what? Right now.
Right now.
I'm just sharing the thing in the Discord while we're actually live. We got 2 people watching right now, but that's
all right. Hey, hello.
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm just sharing the link in some appropriate place. I'm just doing the YouTube link, so for the people who are getting triggered about all that stuff, don't worry. The Odyssey link is in the YouTube link, so it just YouTube for some reason, like mostly the Dash podcast people tend to be much more YouTubers, whereas the Odyssey could be a little bit anywhere else. Hey, Crypto and Dirt, good to see you. Yeah. Also, we're on Twitter and Facebook as well, though those tend to get fewer people. But it tends to be YouTube and Odyssey are the big hitters. So let's see. Well, hey everyone. Oh, there's Eric Olson, Nodak Lojak. Well, all these names I have a difficult time with. But anyway, hey everyone. Welcome to another edition of Friday. I hope a lot of you watched the last show because that was a fun one. But for the people that are just here for Darren, welcome. I'm going to hit the intro real quick, and then we'll get right on into this. So, hey everyone, welcome to this week's version of the Dash podcast. I'm joined by the one and only Dr. Darren Tapp of the Dash Investment Foundation. I've, of course, had him on, chat with him for a bunch of different things. But yeah, it's time to go chat some more. And it's on the subjects specifically of what the Dash Investment Foundation has been able to do. Before we jump into all this stuff, the usual housekeeping items of live crypto super chat, cointr.ee/desert links. If you really want Darren to answer a question, get in there, but get in there now, because as we can see from right here, we got one from the last podcast, What's Scott's Take on the Lightning Network, which it came through just too late for him to be able to go through. CoinTrade used to be a lot faster. It's a little slower now. I don't think that the people who run it have time to properly maintain it. So if someone is a TypeScript dev looking to cut their teeth and do this kind of stuff, hit me up. I'll let you work on CoinTrade as long as you support the other coins. Just because it's 99% Dash for me doesn't mean other people don't rely on it. Wouldn't it be great if, for example, the Dash Incubator, for anyone who's watching, if the Dash Incubator could do a bounty to maintain and improve CoinTrade, and just put a little like powered by the Dash Incubator link on the thing so you could kind of check that out. That would actually be pretty cool. So hit me up if this is going to happen, because that would be really awesome. It's funny. Great Wolf says, "Is Darren not camera shy anymore?" Nah, I guess not. So the Darren paywall thingy, and then the CoinTree, and yeah. So Dash Investment Foundation. Really quick, how have you been, Darren? How's work been? How's all the awesome stuff you've been doing, just in that open kind of way?
It's kind of come to a head. It was very interesting last month to have DashDirect launch, and then not long after that, we had the trust went live. It actually went live a little bit before, like live means available to accept investments. So it went live a little bit before the news articles came out. And I feel like it culminated by one news article I noticed, and I believe it was a press release from Valkyrie, that actually mentioned the DashDirect in article about the Valkyrie Trust. So I thought that was really cool. That's an example of synergy in the fancy
Yeah.
business world.
Synergistic
But
tendencies.
but I mean, I went to a conference and Leia was there, and we just were sitting next to each other. She's like, "What's Dash been doing?" She's doing her own thing with Valkyrie. I'm like, "Oh, well, we got this app that's going to allow people to spend Dash at 155,000 locations in the U.S." And she's like, "Oh, we can tell that to our PR guy." And so so we made those connections to and that helps Valkyrie because they're wanting to get assets under management. That's what their business model is, and so they're promoting Dash while they're looking for investors and all of that.
Yeah. It's so to give everyone a quick recap before we just go deep into Valkyrie, and then of course we'll do Dash Direct and then other questions and then random other Dash stuff depending on how long this whole thing goes. But just for everyone to recap, so the Dash Investment Foundation was founded a couple years ago, I believe, and basically is the world's first decentralized hedge fund, more or less. I mean, that's what people have said. They've described it as. It's a lot more than that.
Yeah. So also sometimes when we describe it as an impact-driven investment fund. Impact. So in the it's incorporated in the Cayman, but a legal equivalent in the U.S. might be an impact-driven investment fund.
So the DIF is an IDIF.
Yeah, it's it's like, well, I mean, yes, we want to make a profit. We want more money to come in than goes out. But at the same time, we're really mainly looking for investments that make an impact. So a world with a Dash Trust is making an impact. A world with Dash Direct is making an impact.
Yeah. And it's funny because that was one of those questions that people had in the interim was like, the DIF is supposed to make money. And I guess it kind of is, but that's not the only thing. And some people were unsatisfied, or some people were very satisfied. There's a whole bunch of stuff. But you have had the unique privilege of being part of the second wave DIF, the second generation, because the first generation. And by saying this, I'm no means criticizing anyone involved in it, because there were some stellar people involved with it and stuff. It was just, what if the Dash Network can own property, invest in things that make money on behalf of all of Dash? It's a very radical concept. And so the DIF got created, and then they were just like figuring things out as they went along and getting a bunch of money, trying to invest in things. Of course, you can't really do anything worth anything at a very low entry point level. It's just like what was I don't know if it was you were saying it or if it was Mike Lewis, or I forget who all was saying this in the past, but basically about like when you start to have like 10 million to throw around, all of a sudden that just opens up so many things. It's not just like, well, you can do 100 times the amount you had with 100,000. It's like, no, it's just the category of things you can do opens up. So there was always that, and then there was also like the, hey, why don't we invest in this company? And you put that as a proposal decision to the network, and the network rejects it because like they don't understand what they're doing, because that's not their job anyway. And it just became weird micromanage. Just had a lot of complications. And then finally, the DIF, I think, hit its stride around when you came in. I mean, I don't want to give you full credit for it, but hey, maybe I'll give you some credit for it, right? But basically, the second generation of the DIF is now kind of hit its stride, and the two biggest news items of the last, I would say, 2 years, as far as Dash is concerned, have been DIF-related, which is Valkyrie Valkyrie getting a DIF investment and coming out with a Dash Trust, an institutional way for people to invest, like say their 401k in Dash, for example, and Dash Direct, where people can effortlessly, or very small effort, spend Dash and save a bunch of money all over the U.S. Those are the two big items, and the DIF was involved in both of them. People know a lot about Dash Direct. Let's just hit Valkyrie then. So first off, what about, like, what can you tell us about Valkyrie in general?
Okay, so it's a Dash Trust, and a trust is a legal person. And if you actually did the Delaware,
I know what legal personhood is, but not a lot of people. Well, not a lot of people do. But yeah.
Well, if you did a Delaware entity search, you would find that there was an entity set up in Delaware. That's the Valkyrie Dash Trust, and that was back in April. So I would search for it, like, oh, it exists, it's there. But I don't think any sleuths in our community found it. However, there was one sleuth in our community, XKCD, that found the
The
SEC.
biggest sleuth of them all. Shout out to
Yeah,
XKCD. He's been
he
watching all
found
kinds of
the
stuff.
SEC filing pretty much just before Leah had sent it over to me. Like she, was like, "Hey, we got it, yay!" But so he found it that quick, and then I think it was a week after the SEC filing that they were able to take investments. So the laws about this thing are a little bit well, they're very specific. So there are laws about soliciting. You can't solicit money from people, but I can inform the community that the trust is now live. If you go to the Valkyrie website, you can see the terms of the trust, and it's because of government rules that it's only available right now to accredited investors. There was some question, and I'm not 100% sure if they're basically because of SEC rules, there's a lockup period. So accredited investors right now, if they want more information, they can go to the Valkyrie website, and there's a subscription document, and which is a contract, and it's pretty big. And basically, you could have your lawyer look over the subscription contract and decide, do you want to invest or not? So the terms are 25,000 is the minimum US, and they will either take Dash directly. So like you could, if you wanted shares in the trust, you could give Dash directly or USD wire.
Yeah.
So those are the two ways of obtaining shares. There is a lockup period. It should be in the contract. It's either 6 months or a year. And after that lockup period, then my understanding is that it's to be available for trade to retail investors over the counter. So that's how it works. So it's still in this lockup period. So retail investors don't have access to it now, but accredited investors, if they're willing to make a minimum outlay, that's available. So the trust is a legal person, so it's an entity that can do everything in a trust can do, but there are kind of restrictions on the trust, like the trust will own a bunch of Dash, and the shares are things. And there's some terms in the trust, like there's a 2% management fee. When we knew that going in when we made the investment, that's just Valkyrie's fee. I'm not quite sure. I know there are some custodian fees, and I'm not sure if Valkyrie pays those or if it's passed on to the customer. But do your own research on it. And that's what exists now. So so we should have a robust over-the-counter market like Grayscale has in a good 6 months or a year.
Yeah. And so let me bring it down to a much dumber level, where people. So right now, anyone can kind of. I mean, I'm kind of apologizing in advance for being so stupid at this level, but like anyone can in the US can kind of like get a Coinbase account and buy Dash directly. And this is obviously buying into the Dash Trust, and not, buying into not the actual irrevocable trust or whatever, Dash DAO, that's a different trust, but the Valkyrie Dash Trust. Buying into that, how is it different from buying Dash directly in terms of positive things? Like, of course, you mentioned a lot of restrictions like lockup periods and accredited investors only for now and things like that. But what kind of benefits does it have over buying Dash directly from, say, Coinbase or something? Who would be looking to buy into this, and like why?
Oh, so I think that institutions that don't want to deal with custody might be really interested in buying some shares in the trust. I think that it's easier to hold Dash in your IRA with this type of product. It's really, really difficult to kind of get Dash in your IRA using fancy accounting tricks.
Oh yeah, so basically, if you have like a retirement account, like an investment account, right now, if you wanted to buy Dash directly, you'd have to cash out of your IRA, early and incur a bunch of penalties and stuff for that, and then just go buy Dash, and then you have to worry about custodying it and securing it all yourself. Whereas if you wanted to go through the Valkyrie Dash Trust, you could just move right over and not have to cash out your IRA, not have to incur those penalties, and not have to worry about custody and stuff. Is that kind of the base sort of thing?
Yeah, so it just opens it up to a new market, retail investors. Right now, it's very difficult to obtain Dash if you're in New York. I believe that the shares in the trust won't have that issue.
Yeah.
I think you can buy them if you're in New York because they're an SEC regulated thing.
Which is very obviously we all, all of us operate to a certain extent within the bounds of the law and understand that not everything has to make sense, but that makes a special level of no sense that, you can buy Dash, but you can't buy that Dash. You just,
well, the accredited investor rule kind of, in this case, kind of doesn't make sense when you fund it with Dash, because basically you're using something that is exposed to risk, but you're just trading it for a different thing with a similar type of risk. So it's almost the same risk exposure. So I don't know why these rules restricting who does what.
Yeah.
One could question if they're that valuable.
Well, it's funny. It's like, it's one of those things that for someone like me, I'm unbanked. I deal directly in crypto. It's like, that's my world. And I kind of understood on a higher level a little bit that like, okay, well, institutions like this is better or something. But I posted in some like private chat group with some friends who are not super crypto people. They're just like regular folks. I just posted like, hey, look at this big, because they know I'm big into Dash and stuff. And then I just said like, oh, you check this out. And I posted like the Valkyrie Trust announcement. And then I got a private message like 2 minutes later from one of them saying like, yo, we had a talk over the weekend. I want to know how I could put my 401k into this thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I'm starting to get like this is what people are looking for. People, not me, right, have regular jobs with their regular health insurance and their regular, deductions and their regular filings, and just a regular world of, insurance and payments and banking and all this kind of stuff. And then the company incentive or matches like their IRA or something like that or whatever. They got their investment account going on as they're doing this. And then they're like, oh, this is very valuable for people like that to be able to kind of go in there. Whereas someone like me, who's just a very strange person, is not as valuable. But like, that's exactly kind of, one of the use cases on the smaller level. But then if you go on the higher level, of course, larger institutions that want exposure to this, like, you always talk about, institutions are coming and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, that makes perfect sense of why that's kind of like valuable. Now, what I was thinking about with that whole thing is, we did have a question about like institutional interest. So, and it's obviously it's less of a clear, question with a certain answer necessarily. But has there been, do you know of any institutional interest in Valkyrie as a whole? Or, of course, more specifically in the Dash Trust that they provide at this stage? Have you heard anything about that yet?
Valkyrie as a whole. So Valkyrie as a company, yes. I think that I think the DIF is in a good position to be in the same cap table as the other people that have invested in Valkyrie. I think that there's a lot of movers and shakers, so it's nice to be kind of next to them. Yes, there's been interest I know of institutional interest in the company Valkyrie, and with execution. I'm not aware of institutional interest in the Dash Trust. However, if there was institutional interest, I don't think they would advertise that because they would want to, they would want to raise the price before they buy it.
Yeah, of course. It is one thing that's always interesting. We're gonna go to this little live chat question in just a second. Well, actually, why not just do it right now? Because if someone else asks another question, and then it'll pop up later. It'll kind of supersede this, put this on the screen. Can Darren speak on the tax advantages with Valkyrie's trust structure?
I can say that their website says there's no K1. So what that means, I think that's less paperwork. I don't think you're going to avoid capital gains. I guess there could be tax advantages if you are able to use this product in an IRA. But I'm really not the one to speak about tax advantages. But that's pretty much what I know about it.
Yeah, well, interesting stuff. Now, one thing I've sort of noticed in this whole discussion, first off, it was kind of a meme in the cryptoverse about institutions are coming forever, and then people were like, yeah, right, or whatever, and then institutions ended up coming. Some of them, like, obviously, like the whole MicroStrategy and Grayscale and all this kind of stuff, like, coming into the space. And one thing that before now, we haven't really seen Dash represented very well.
Right.
Like, and that's been a big thorn, like, that's been a big gut punch, because it seems like this has been one of those tropes with Dash over the years, has been Dash is the black sheep of the crypto world. Like, no one wants to just do Dash any favors. No one's going to scramble to add Dash. Like, everything has to be like clawed for and earned. Like, Coinbase came so many years after it was due. And, because like the crypto world, the old boys club or whatever it is. But then you have, so now Dash, because of the diff, again, without the diff, this wouldn't be a thing, right? If Dash was just if it didn't have this, it probably would not have gotten into Valkyrie to this same extent.
Well, Valkyrie did like Dash. That was one thing that probably made this deal possible. So they came to the table actually wanting to work with Dash.
That's good.
And then, so we did make the investment, but I think that another reason that helped this product come to market was a lot of work was done by supervisors actually like we reviewed some of their legal documents. We were looking for more or less correct explanation of how masternodes work and all that, like the actual trust.
Yeah.
And it's just, when you could have your lawyers write it up all day, but the lawyers don't understand the technical end. So supervisors were able to look at the legal stuff and see if it's correct enough to correctly explain the technical from a technical side. So, and there was a lot of back and forth between Dash Investment Foundation supervisors and Valkyrie. We had calls after the investment. It was a long and arduous process. I almost forget now that it's launched. I kind of forgot that.
Yeah.
But and it was a lot of work on a lot of sides, and Valkyrie really rolled with the punches. And there were some. This should have come out sooner, but it came out later, and I don't think that was anything on Valkyrie's end. I think it was you need a lot of parts moving together, and it took a few tries.
And so, Bill, before we hit that question, do you have any speculation? Obviously, it's got to be speculation, probably. But do you have any speculation as to why Dash seems to have been excluded from so many of these sort of institutional funds before Valkyrie kind of came around? Is there a regulatory reason? Is there a crypto insider club kind of reason? Is there we didn't have people out there talking to these people like the diff supervisors ended up doing? There wasn't enough work done in that way. Like, do you have any guesses or speculation?
It's possible that some prominent players in the space were hostile to Dash. So for whatever reason, I don't know. I just showed up. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Valkyrie actually has a better product than Grayscale. I don't know if you watch Bloomberg News or Bloomberg Business, but there was months ago there was a thing that came across the screen about like the Grayscale trust owners, the people that own the shares, were considering suing Grayscale because the trading value of the shares was below the net asset value, like basically the amount of assets under that the share represents.
Interesting.
And so I think Grayscale got scared and actually went on the open market and started buying to kind of help rectify that. But my understanding of the way the Valkyrie Trust is set up is every year, or maybe twice a year, people who with a significant amount of shares can actually redeem their shares directly for Dash. So there's some market. They're building in some market. Market reasons why it would track the net asset value. It very well likely could keep tracking it. There's going to be some up and down. Maybe it's going to be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but it shouldn't get too far off, because if it got too far off, somebody could just buy it, expecting to trade it in for Dash later.
Yeah, that's a very interesting tidbit. And it's funny because I like to say that the free market is undefeated, that when prices are weird, there's a reason for that. It's not just, well, the market's acting irrationally. Like, there's something going on there. And so one thing I always love, it's a great economics lesson anytime you see something that should be valued, something that's valued a little bit differently. Like, for example, every time Tether goes off its peg. And it's just like, well, why would it be off its peg if it's valued $1? And it's like, well, there's tons of reasons for that. And so, for example, Grayscale, as you were just mentioning, being like off its peg, so to speak, kind of means that there is some lessened utility in there somewhere, or something was kind of a little funky in there, which is again why you're talking about the lawsuit. But then, with Valkyrie, making it actually track the asset price a lot closer, it's kind of a result of being a better product, because the difference between if it's worth less than the actual base asset, there's a million different micro reasons that could have been, but the overall reason is the product is inferior, which is why it's worth less. It just literally, that's the way free markets work, and it's kind of interesting to see that happen.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I believe it was a threatened lawsuit against Grayscale. I don't think it went through.
Yeah,
I don't think it went to court.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that they didn't have to go through all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. And one thing, so for those who have been around the Dash community for a while, at least since the beginning of the year, there was something that has been colloquially known as the big announcement that has been floating around forever. This is the big announcement, right? That was,
I believe so. I mean,
yeah, and in retrospectively, it was, right? It's from what I'm able to know. Now,
yeah, I mean,
it was basically, the community was like upset about the price of Dash. They were, feeling like falling behind, and they just wanted some good news. And then some good news got alluded to, which ended up taking huge amounts of time to come to fruition, which frustrated people even more. But now that it's out, which is fantastic. But that begs the question, why did it end up taking so long? Like, what was it that, I know it was like regulatory approval was the cited thing, but what caused these extra delays? Do you know?
Yeah, because
government sucks.
They needed a good custodian. The first custodian that they wanted to go with didn't work out.
Okay, so it was like a custodian issue type thing.
I think that's fair to say. I don't think that's divulging too much, but it was a custodian.
Yeah,
the Dash in general, like the Dash infrastructure, not the DIF, has gotten interest from major players saying, hey, do you need a custody arrangement? And so there was kind of the assumption that major players would custody once we brought him a big client. And so we brought him Valkyrie, and then people who we thought would custody, or companies that we thought would custody, didn't. And but we got it. It's done.
Yeah, well, fantastic. I think we have a new super chat in here. Here we go.
All right.
Are the holdings of trusts like Valkyrie publicly viewable? As in, do we have a way to know how much of the coin's supply is, quote, locked up in them?
I I imagine,
Yeah.
but it might have to wait till um, until like it's publicly traded before that information is publicly available. I'm sure if I
Yeah.
asked, they would tell me how much is locked
Of
up.
course.
They are going to run masternodes. The press release said staking. That was another reason it was hold up, because the product that Valkyrie wanted to offer would have the rewards from the masternodes. So and I, when kind of doing a comparison of products, it may kind of, I thought that a retail investor would see Dash and see Bitcoin and say, oh, Dash has a 4% dividend because 6% for the masternode, but 2 for the management take away. So they would just like say, oh, the 4% dividend. I mean, retail investors make decisions based on things like that. So I thought that was good from the get-go to have the trust run masternodes. Also, I think there's some advantages that the trust running masternodes. The trust has a fiduciary duty to the shareholders. So here, these masternodes have to support people who own Dash, and I'm really happy with our masternodes. It's just that I at least when a masternode votes, I kind of wish people would try to vote for the advancement of people that own Dash and not the advancement of masternodes. I think there's a subtle difference between the two, and for the most part, masternodes vote for the general community. There's hardly anything that applies to masternodes that doesn't apply for the general community. So, but I thought that was a good thing, and at least with the previous round of supervisors, and I imagine the policy will continue. The previous round of supervisors basically came to an agreement that the DIF should not operate masternodes. When I was elected, I was just looking at public information about the DIF, and I learned that they were depositing in accounts that were making masternodes, and I just think that's kind of weird because you're asking the community for money, but then if you run masternodes, then you're diluting the community. So we came to the policy. Basically, it's our policy that we don't run masternodes. Now with the trust is running masternodes, so the DIF won't own any shares of the trust, and for any reason, I guess.
Yeah.
But
so the DIF won't own any shares of the Valkyrie Dash Trust, but they do own shares of Valkyrie itself.
That's right.
Which is a important distinction, but it's at least it's all kind of plugged into the same basic thing.
And So and there's been a lot of legal questions in our community. So now that we're kind of through this process, when the investment was first made, the DIF was under agreement, so legal binding contract. Contract of called SAFE agreement.
Yeah.
And now that the Series A is completed, we've seen that article come out. So I'm not disclosing that to you; it's just public knowledge. Now that Series A is completed, the DIF has actually received the shares in the company and in Valkyrie. So we have shares. We have a number of shares.
Yeah.
And the DIF was also at a seed round, and this most recent round, which was over 10 million. Like there was some question that I don't want to really divulge how much the
of course
Dash Investment Foundation owns, but they own not much of Valkyrie. But you can kind of figure it out when we were part of a bigger round when we invested $100,000, and it's public knowledge that their Series A that they closed was $10 million, and the DIF did not participate in the Series A, like basically it's all Series A from the seed to the thing. It was round one, there was a bridge round and round two. So you can imagine 100,000 that now is now people are paying up to like
A lot
basically
more.
there's a 10 million inflow into there. Well, new investment and it's very common and this is basically how venture capitalist deals are set up. So when the Series A closed, all that money flows into the company. It's called a cash infusion deal, and the diff will get diluted. And but that's the way it works, and that's the way that's in our agreements that we signed, and we knew that going into it. But I mean, also I want to tell the community that our shares at the seed level were valued at over a 4x multiple.
Yeah.
With that 10 million round. So it.
Well, that's cool. That's a good.
Yeah. So
dent.
and at least in my view, I mean, we're a committee, so we have to vote. But in my view, I'm with Valkyrie for the long haul. I'm just gonna stay. I mean, I would promote the diff, just keeping that equity until everybody exits, which is just and that I think it would be. I think this is a long haul. I mean, Grayscale's been going for a while. But yeah, I mean, I think of it just as a Dash community member. If you put up a proposal that said, hey, please give me $100,000 and I'll have a Dash Trust in the future. If you knew that was a good proposal and it would happen, I would vote for it.
Yeah.
And so now that we have this diff, so now that 100,000 did cause a trust and we have the equity. And I'm looking forward to continuing the relationship with Valkyrie. I think they're just such a great. They just really moved in and they're making a real splash in the space.
Yeah, that was kind of my impression as well. It seems like when people were talking about Valkyrie, when Dash people were talking about Valkyrie, it seems like people are like, "What the hell is that? Who is it?" Like kind of unimpressed, sort of like, what is this? Like no one's heard of them, sort of thing. And then when you start looking at the players behind it, it's like actual people, like bigger players. And then where it is now, it's so much of a larger and much more. And again, this is the space of a few months. It's so funny how fast this has been. But now it's like, wow, we're at the table of a bigger entity here, and that can really start growing. And it just feels like because in the past, a lot of times, Dash has kind of gone into or had proposals with or things like that. A lot of like small potatoes kind of things, like, oh yeah, we want some money from the treasury, pre-diff, right? We want money from the treasury because we basically don't have a viable business on our own. We're just like trying to get in there, and then there was some other things such as like the BitGo thing, which is BitGo integrated plenty of people without all the money, but then they wanted a bunch from Dash and like all that, like the black sheep kind of vibes. But then this ends up being something where, it looks like Dash is a partner with quite a respectable organization now, and it didn't cost the arm and a leg to do that.
Right.
Yeah, and so before I kind of go into a little bit more detail on that, I did get a comment that's not related to this that I wanted to address. Zinder says, this is the first time I've seen Joel's stream play smoothly without repeated lag and constant frame dropping. He's clearly fixed something. It's looking good. You have no idea, dude, how long I worked at trying to make it look a lot better. And thank you, Darren, for having a relatively low quality camera because it's running smoothly. And the last one I had with Scott Cunningham, his thing was way too high quality and it did lag a little bit. And so clearly I got to fix some settings on my end or get a better computer. So anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for noticing. That was, I've been trying really hard to not have something absolutely awful. So as a sort of continuation of that Valkyrie question thing, I'm just going to read like the actual word for word. I think it was Magnus in the Discord who asked this question, if I can remember. But just says, I would also like to know what our seat at the table is in Valkyrie's eyes compared to Justin Sun and Charlie Lee, both of whom invested in the Series A, by the way, and was publicized by CoinDesk and other places. Anyway, both in terms of relative stake and general influence as best it can be measured. It was interesting to note that the Tron Trust was released before the Dash Trust. It was close, but ours was in the works for a very long time beforehand. Some clarification there. Any insight on how, if those other investments affect the intercoin politics within Valkyrie would be good. So you already answered a whole lot of those different specific bits about like how big of a seat at the table does Dash have in terms of actual financial investment. That was pretty, although, that was pretty clear, I would say. And then as well as kind of why did the Dash thing take so long? Well, the, possibly custodian issues or whatever that need to be ironed out, which I'm just going to speculate in my mind and then, let it just be speculation of Tron came to the table a lot later, but they had all the infrastructure for custodians set up a lot faster behind the scenes. So it was able to be, for purely technical reasons or technical regulatory reasons, able to be set through quicker. It's not that they put Tron at the head of their priority list and bumped Dash back. That's kind of what I'm speculating.
Right.
But
if Valkyrie could have had this up in February, they would, or April. I think the entity was up in April, so if they could have had it up in April, they would. They would have done it as soon as they could. And
so basically, we already answered a lot of those parts of the question. The only thing that wasn't explicitly, there wasn't explicitly necessarily answered, just the general like vibe we have with them and the influence. Do you think, first off, intercoin politics, do you think Dash is going to ever take a backseat or be bumped or whatever in Valkyrie because other crypto players involved in Valkyrie are going to like have more influence and would try to use that to hurt Dash? Or just on the other side, what's the relationship like with Valkyrie that, and how good is that as far as like long term?
I don't really think intercoin politics is going to play much thing in Valkyrie. They see value in Dash. That's one reason they approached us. They know how much they need to have under management to more or less break even, and it's a significant amount in the Dash world. So they need a specific amount of US dollar under management. So I think that we should expect Valkyrie to do what's in their interest as a business and make a profit. So within the next year or two, I would expect them to get over that threshold, and then the trust will be profitable to them. And as long as the trust is profitable, I think that they'll keep it. There's a certain capital outlay, time, and expense that went into creating the Dash Trust, and so in a year from now, if it's profitable, I think they will keep doing that, and their business strategy is aligned with that as well. So
and honestly, like there has been a lot of there's been a lot of what we addressed earlier of the good old boys club and just other, old school people sort of excluding Dash or making Dash work harder. There's a lot of that, but the uncomfortable truth that a lot of people in Dash don't want to face is it's all dollars and cents. It's all supply and demand, right? It's, people will support Dash on every processor, every exchange, everything if there's enough demand and they can make money off of it. And so, a lot of people are like, well, why do they keep, like, again, I don't foresee this being a thing, but let's say in a couple of years, Valkyrie doesn't have a Dash Trust anymore because it didn't make money, but they still have a Tron one. It's not like, oh, it'll be salty, he likes Justin Sun better. It's like, no, it's like it's on us to to get the demand for Dash out there, to let people know that this is a great technology, a great ecosystem with a lot of use cases, to not just sit behind our keyboards and like complain in Discord or whatever it is, right? It's on us to get out and get things going.
Yeah, they have a very specific business model, and they know what they need to do to make the trust profitable for them. And as long as it's profitable, I would expect them to keep it.
Yeah, free market is undefeated, as I always say, right? You can't beat the free market. So, or you can destroy it in some countries, but that's a different conversation entirely. Yeah, so that's a pretty good overview of the whole Valkyrie thing. Obviously, CrayPay DashDirect stuff is a hot topic. Before I jump into that, I just had a random thought or on RUNE/Thorchain, just because I was like, oh yeah, that's right, that's another thing that's going on. So for the people who don't really remember, so the DeFi space has basically, it started mostly with Ethereum, I would say, of decentralized exchanges like Uniswap that allow people to trade like they do on centralized exchange, just without a centralized company to rely on, without KYC and all the other nonsense pieces like that. And then what made Thorchain, which, you know, people like Eric Voorhees are involved with or very bullish on, is what makes that big is that it's basically a cross-chain DEX, a fully cross-chain deck. We don't have to wrap a token, so I don't have to have like a wrapped Dash token that you trade on Uniswap back and forth and all that kind of nonsense. It's just like directly for it. It's like old school Shapeshift before regulators kind of got into the way, but like the real vision. And so that is a huge thing, if you ask me. And a lot of people were very bullish on that. And there's a Thorchain integration in the works for Dash to get it on there. But where the diff comes in, and I'm sure you can, you know, elaborate more on that, is the diff, because because Thorchain works with liquidity on like a 2-token liquidity or whatever on the asset you want to trade or whatever, and on like RUNE. So for example, I did a little bit of liquidity priding just to like test it out with like probably a total of like $300 worth of like Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum. And when I deposited on there to provide liquidity and get fees and stuff from that, it split it between that and RUNE. So on my Ethereum stuff, I'm like not profitable in the slightest because the RUNE token went down and Ethereum went way up. And so half my Ethereum got turned into RUNE or whatever. But that's just a short-term thing. But basically, so the diff has gotten into RUNE significantly in order to basically, because RUNE token holders, by having the liquidity available in RUNE, is able to secure the token's actual place on the trading platform. Is that right? So basically, yeah, talk about the diff and RUNE.
So the RUNE, the diff was investigating DeFi for all year,
of course,
off and on, more or less. And so we were looking at DeFi on Ethereum, DeFi on Binance Chain. We did a lot of work, and we had no fruit to show for it. But when because basically we were trying to understand all the risks, all the things, and you know, as a whole committee, we're trying to understand this stuff, and it just like how do the Ethereum fees fit in? And, but when the Thorchain went live, and let's see, Hytham said, well, why don't we do Thorchain? Everything just kind of clicked. It's like, yes, we're going to do it. You know, like everybody was like, yes, like nobody had any reason not to do it. And I feel like I'm the most critical of the DeFi. And I was like, I don't know, I have any reason not to do it. And then, you know, some supervisors were like, this is a real project. It's a good project. So, so we did it. And, so the vote we took was to allocate $100,000 US dollars for this project. At that time, it was set aside as BTC. You know, when we set it aside, I thought that RUNE is subject to the crypto risk, and so being in BTC would kind of mitigate that crypto risk. And then the BTCs, now it's on the Thorchain. And part of it has been buying RUNE, but we haven't finished, and the Thorchain kind of shut down, so we can't finish the buy.
Are they back on yet? I could have sworn I saw something went back live again in the last.
Well,
day,
maybe
so.
I don't. Yeah. My information might be 2 days old, but my information is not.
Yeah. It's so. Yeah. This has been a little bit of an awkward timing because this is just when Thorchain's starting to take off, and I still think it's a huge project, and I think a lot of people involved are very, very good people, and it's very, like, yeah, I'm not going to say many negative things about it. That being said, they had a few hacks or exploits, I would say, and
my understanding is they've all been on the Ethereum side, so that's one reason it was so hard for us to do the DeFi investment, because it's, you know, Ethereum's got so many moving parts so we like my first thought was, oh, Thorchain was hacked. I'm like, oh, how did that hurt the diff? But since the diff wasn't doing anything with Ethereum, I don't really think that had any impact on us, other than the market risk, which we were already expecting and exposed to, and we were already mitigating that by dragging out the purchasing over time. You do Bitcoin cost averaging, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, or just buying the dip. One of the two.
Well, that's the thing is, so the timing of it was interesting because just as this heated up, there were some exploits, and they obviously that causes turmoil in the token and things like that. And so, like the diff was in the process of acquiring the token. And of course, it's terrible to like buy, or not terrible, but it's like not as optimal to buy and then it crashes because of this stuff. And then you have to wait for the investment to kind of pay off later. Although obviously it's valuable on its own. But basically, is my only question on that side is, was there an opportunity, or is there a continuing opportunity for the diff to buy the dip?
As soon as Thorchain gets back up and running, yes.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And that's because we didn't buy it all at once. So it's about 60% Bitcoin and 40% RUNE right now. So if it dips, yes, there'll be the opportunity to buy. There you go.
Yeah. So before we get into the old DashDirect CrayPay type stuff, just want to let people know that looks like CoinTree's working. Yes, you can still throw in super chats. If you want any questions answered, start asking them now, because sometimes it takes a little while to kick in, and we don't want to be like, hey, I asked you and you didn't answer because, oh, whoops, the stream ended already. So just start thinking about that. All right, so DashDirect / CrayPay. So CrayPay is a, Phoenix-based company that, deals with, their original product was
Payments.
Yeah, payments. Basically a way for people to save on everyday payments by getting rewards points through basically using a gift card hack where you use your credit card to buy a gift code right before you make an actual purchase, and then you get like a couple % off because of that. And then obviously if you have your card rewards point, it stacks. It's just a little way of like people to save on that kind of stuff, but ended up basically being a vehicle for people to spend, dash, and save significantly all over the US. And of course, this was facilitated by the diff in no small part of the diff investing in the company and, handling a lot of this stuff. So since then, it's been like the darling of the Dash world. Still needs a lot more promotion out there to get everyone aware of it because it's a really huge thing. But do you want to just break down from you guys' perspective, from the diff perspective, how this kind of came about, and how that kind of thing is looking now?
So we had just made the Valkyrie investment, and before we made the Valkyrie investment, Ryan was like, do we think anything better could come along? Like that's basically the only reason not to do the investment. And so we made the Valkyrie investment with the idea that we wouldn't have enough money to make another investment in December. But then the CrayPay thing came along, and I'm like, threat. I mean, it's really hard to know which one's better, CrayPay or Valkyrie. So
they're both very different.
Yeah. But luckily, and it was kind of luck that because of we were using Hummingbot to do the whatever, the moving into dollars, the hedging into dollars, whatever. Like we were using Hummingbot. So luckily, by selling over time, basically dollar cost averaging or whatever when we're selling, or dash cost average, I don't know what it's called. We actually had enough to do the outlay for CrayPay, and it was a pretty easy decision.
Yeah. And so Ryan, of course, brought that up to you guys, right?
Yeah. Ryan introduced us to CrayPay as Demelza introduced us to Valkyrie.
Yeah, and because Ryan had a specific interest in the company, he recused himself, I assume, and from like voting on that. But
is that public information?
I don't know.
Maybe. I won't. Yeah, I would.
Yeah, but basically,
yeah.
that's
our policy. If somebody has a public a private interest in something, they recuse themselves from the vote.
Yeah, and so it's kind of funny because when people are looking at this kind of thing, because there's a lot of backstory of, obviously Dash is based everywhere, but Dash Core Group is mostly it's mostly based in Phoenix, or one could say, right? And so there have been past agreements. For example, the Arizona State University blockchain research, of course, you're very well familiar with that one, aren't you? And as one of the researchers yourself, and then you have, let's say, I mean, obviously CrayPay now, but then you had like Alt 36 in the past. You have a bunch of these things that are like, basically Ryan Taylor's fingerprints on them, right? And so it's funny with all this, like, I'm sure, again, I'm saying like the devil's advocate part of this, right? Of I'm sure a lot of people were just saying, is this just another one of the things that like Ryan only knows about because he's buddies with the guy and because it's local?
Well,
and then this, like, people being like, is this just going to be a waste of money because this is the only stuff he knows or something? And it turned out, at least in my opinion, everyone can make their own, to be absolutely the opposite of where this was like a gold mine of a find, for the Dash network.
I mean, you can spend Dash at more places than you can spend Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You can spend at Chipotle. You can spend at Subway. You can spend at CVS, which is pretty big around here.
Yeah.
I've spent at all those places, and I'm like, oh, I went to Best Buy and bought a.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, the limit is $500 on Best Buy, but how many other cryptocurrencies? Like, I was in person, I paid, and I had a little bit of hiccup at Barnes and Nobles because I was like, I'm gonna, everybody's like, oh, you don't spend. Who wants to spend crypto to get coffee? So I'm like, I gotta go to Barnes and Nobles, get a cup of coffee, but then the minimum at Barnes and Nobles is $5, so I'm gonna have to bring a date.
Yeah.
And buy 2 coffees.
It's funny. The minimum on Jimmy John's, I believe, is something like $20 or something crazy like that, which is very weird. But that's on their side. It's not
right.
But it's a pretty massive kind of a thing, and it's it might be a little bit. It could be like a week or a little bit over a week before I release it because of my interview schedule. But before the podcast today, I was interviewing Marshall of CrayPay, and we were talking about a lot of stuff, and it's pretty big stuff. I
know, and this most recent proposal, it's like, what?
Yeah. And so
like that's like the holy grail.
Yeah.
Like, you want to do what?
Well, and here's the thing is, let me, because we're kind of on, I could wax poetic endlessly about Dash being used for payments and stuff. From the perspective of investment, Dash's superior payments ability has not borne many fruits in terms of investment historically, because it's like, I can't think of like how many times have people like, Ryan, but also others, tried to find a way to get Dash to use his payments, and it didn't quite pan out, and then the price didn't really appreciate that, and then all these like crappy coins end up like pumping, and because like the logic is everyone uses money. Peer-to-peer digital cash was what Bitcoin was founded for, and it's not doing that. So there's a gold mine of value waiting for someone to take it, and if Dash could take that, Dash is going to go to the moon. And just so, therefore, by focusing on payments, like, hey, Venezuela, they need payments there and all that, like, that's going to be good for Dash. And historically, as far as acclaim and price, as far as like a lot of success metrics, it's not worked out. However, this is one of those cases where the Dash Direct offering we have today, I believe, based on anecdotal evidence mostly, but like I believe this is enough to start to actually where we start to see those returns, because not only, I mean, I've been living off of Dash for like 5 years, right? It's like, who cares if I like it? But the fact that, I've had people who are not, into the crypto world just like figure out how to use the app on their own or using it on their own. But the biggest thing is everyone in Dash, of course, when there's a new thing, want to try it out and tweet about, oh yeah, I bought this. This is awesome. That's not a statistic. What the stats that I look for, the anecdotal evidence, is repeat. Almost everyone who has done this has then gone on to like do it again and again,
right,
and again. And it's like once you've already gotten like yeah, I tried it out, and I like you don't keep trying unless there's something else bringing you to the table. And obviously discounts are good enough to get you to a certain extent to the table, but they did with BitRefill. When BitRefill had the 10% off, it did work. And after the 10% went away, yeah, a lot of people stopped using it, kind of. But this is something that's like kind of renewable. I think this could provide a whole lot of value.
And we should actually expect those savings to increase as Dash directors use some of the profit, more or less, or revenue that generates actually goes back to CrayPay to recover the cost of the app. And as that cost is recovered, more there's actually a schedule for how I haven't looked at it, but there's a schedule for once half of it's recovered, then the savings become more, and so on, eventually till the whole thing's paid off, and then the savings will be max out. And then the maximum savings. Now it's not just the savings. Now, when the savings get more and more, some merchants that CrayPay has partnerships with could become profitable, and so they probably would be added to the app too. So we're going to see more merchants added. Hopefully, I mean, just use it. Go out there, get all your friends to spend, $10 million on this app, and I mean, which isn't crazy. If 10,000 people spend $100, that's $1 million, and they do that for a year, you've got 12 million. So go out there, use the app, and then the savings will increase until the app is paid off, and as the savings increase, I mean, it's actually recouping the cost of the credit cards, and I think that's one reason that I got involved in Bitcoin in the first place. Well, one of many reasons. I mean, we were already in New Hampshire, Joel. I think you were in New Hampshire, and we were doing the silver trade and all that. So it made sense to use something else that digital. We were having a lot of fun trading silver here in New Hampshire, and then I learned about this Bitcoin thing, and I really hope that this Dash Direct app can bring as much joy as my first few Bitcoin purchases did, and I really think it has that potential because I used it and I had that similar feeling, and I mean,
it'd be funny. That
it's true, though. Like maybe you got so used to it, Joel, that you don't like, oh wow, but it's you actually pay directly from your wallet to. And the money goes to CrayPay, and then something happens behind the scenes that gets the gift card, and then you pay it at Subway, and you walk away, and it's like that really worked. Okay,
it's pretty cool, and it kind of when you talk about the joy, that reminds me, of course, the Barry Kondo. This sparks joy, this doesn't spark joy, and maybe that's a meme idea for like Dash with Dash Direct. This sparks joy. Lightning Network. This does not spark joy because as someone who uses Lightning, it's a little tricky to get around some things.
Yeah. So I hope that I could bring that feeling to a broader portion of the world, I guess.
Of course.
I mean, I'm expecting this will broaden our Dash community. I mean, I love the reception we received on the BTC Reddit, which is strongly for Bitcoin Cash, so they are interested in the back cash. I'd say the majority of comments were very positive about it, and I'm like, you don't even know, it's going to get better and better and better. So, and I love having this friendly competition. I think a world with two peer-to-peer cash is better than certainly better a world with none, and it's probably better than a world with one. So let's go. And it's a nice competition. It's a competition. Like some of the BTC crowd tries to phrase everything like it's a big war or something, and I'm tired. It's no more war. We're just gonna compete, and maybe we'll have a world with two. Maybe we'll have a world with 20. Who cares? Just let's. I'm gonna do the best I can for this project that I think is the best. That's doing the best at what it does, maybe somebody disagrees, and I invite them to prove me wrong.
Well, so this is obviously a fantastic thing for people who want to use Dash, or even people who have other coins but want to spend them in real life to then switch them over for Dash. Now, before we go into like the usability, like the proposal and other cool things, just from the diff perspective and the investment part of it, because the diffs, purpose-driven investment clearly got this done, created this, or was an integral part of getting this thing that's very valuable for Dash and the Dash ecosystem into existence. Now, but on the other side of what the diff does, as far as like what are the prospects of the diff's stake in CrayPay being positive? Because that's the thing about CrayPay is like, all I'm thinking about is DashDirect and how awesome it is for people like me and for everyone. But I'm not thinking about the company that runs it and their profitability and how much profit they make, because that's a good thing for sustainability. So do you have any ideas or feelings on CrayPay's, as a company, their profits and Dash's equity, therefore the diff's equity in that, as like doing well based on the way CrayPay operates?
Yes, I have a feeling, and I think it's doing well. If in this type of game, these are startups, these are very risky things. You pretty much assume that 9 out of 10 are going to fail. But I don't think that's the case in CrayPay. I honestly don't think it's the case in Valkyrie or CrayPay. I think they're going to go the distance. And I base this on information that I get not only before we made the investment, but also information that we continually get from our partners as it goes forward. We should expect 9 out of 10 to fail, and I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, we haven't made 10 investments yet, so but I really don't think that's going to happen. And I would encourage the other supervisors to stay in with all our partners until there's an exit, until there's everybody exits at the same time. There's no way I'm giving up CrayPay.
Yeah. So, well, let's just hit into the proposal kind of a thing. And this is a lot more liberating now, because in years past, like a couple years ago, and before, this Dash podcast was part of like the Dash News YouTube channel thing, which was treasury funded. So we're very careful to not be explicitly crypto political or DAO political on talk about pending proposals. We just didn't kind of like try to cover upcoming proposals. But this is my own thing for the last couple of years, and I don't give a crap. I can talk about what I want. So let's talk about the CrayPay's new proposal, right? So CrayPay has a proposal that they put out a couple days ago, or yesterday, or it was very recently, that basically it's in order to enable, from what I understand from speaking with Marshall, it's to enable some functionality that would be kind of not cost effective for CrayPay to do completely on their own dime.
Right.
But by getting a little bit of help from Dash, they're able to provide the service to Dash. And what is that service? Basically to provision on the spot prepaid Visa or MasterCard. Again, I don't know which one's going to be, but prepaid gift card credit, but not like to a specific retailer, to anything, to anywhere cards are accepted, that then can be seamlessly put into your digital wallet, not crypto wallet, but your Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, and then NFC Pay at the point of sale. And so, for example, let's just say I want to buy a cup of coffee, or no, a cup of coffee and a bagel. Make it a little bit more than that. So let's just say it's like $8 or whatever. Or let's just say
you would do that in Barnes and Nobles and get your savings and not use a card.
Yeah, but let's just say,
let's say you're at Starbucks, which is not on CrayPay yet or DashDirect yet. You could you could get a card right away, put it in your Google Pay or Apple Pay.
Yeah, or let's say it's the coffee shop up the street that's independent. There's only one of them, right? So they're obviously they don't have like a gift card system with a big network to sell to a bunch of stuff. Like, no, you just you go straight there. So I go up the street to the coffee shop. I got like a $10 avocado toast and a $4 latte. It's like $14. I'm splurging today. And so, all right, it's gonna be $14. In DashDirect, I enter 14 with like the Visa thing. Hit buy. I pay with Dash. I buy $14 worth of Visa credit that then goes into my, let's just say, Samsung Pay thing, beep, NFC on the terminal, and it pays. And that's
Right.
not like, oh, 155,000 merchants. It's like all the merchants at that point, all the U.S.
Right.
merchants. And then,
And it's
yeah.
and it's a prepaid Visa card. So if you're at your computer and you want to buy something and they take credit card.
And I obviously I don't want to ruin the interview too much, but
I
yeah.
would expect there's going to be some limits on this. It's not, this is not a financial application. So like if you need to buy a house,
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to use DashDirect. But I believe it will work for your general purchases that you make throughout the day.
Yeah, and that thing is like, I hope people understand. Well, first off, whenever anyone like, you just spend Dash, where can you spend it? No one knows. Okay. Well, then you got the AnyPay map that shows all the merchants with the AnyPay, but that's still very few. Or like you go to cross-reference a couple maps, it's just really annoying to find where you can spend this stuff. So then they're just like, we'll just use Bitrefill. Bitrefill has a ton of places. It's very useful. But like, do you go to a town and be like, all right, where can I spend my Dash? You start scrolling down this list. Let's see. I like Chipotle. Is there a Chipotle in this town?
Just there's a nearby.
The friction, but that's Bitrefill. But then you hit DashDirect, and then you just say, open, where can I spend it? 0.2 miles there, I can, and it's just so seamless, right? But it's still, oh, what if I didn't want to go there? What if I wanted to, like, you're in a group of people. Everyone wants to go to this new place that, whatever. They don't take crypto directly, and they don't have like a gift card thing. So then you got to either say, no, I'm going to like Applebee's because they're on DashDirect, or I'm just going to like pay fiat. Like, now for those situations, you have a thing you can do. But more importantly, as someone who's unbanked like me, there's a lot of very small, like, but really important, like a band of issues that are just super difficult to deal with. It's like, I can buy almost anything with crypto. I can live off of crypto, but there's a couple things that make me really have to like do like dodges and ducks and like a bunch of weird, ugly hacks to get around. And one of those things, for example, when you're traveling, if you have a hotel room, if you use a service like, for example, Travala, I believe, sometimes they have a card for incidentals that are just packed into the service. But usually when you go to a hotel, they want a card. Because even if you paid with something else, even if it's already paid for, like I actually had it when I was going to speak at World CryptoCon, I had like they paid for my room there at like the Aria Hotel, I think. And so I show up there and I'm like, all right, I'm here checking in. Oh, it looks like your room's paid for. All right, you're all good to go. We just need a card for incidentals. And I'm like, well, I don't have one. So like, what do you mean you don't have one? Well, I'm unbanked. I've been unbanked for 5 years. They're like, well, we need one. And I talked to the organizers, and then the people that invited me to speak there, because I was unbanked. And guess what? I'm not a phony. I'm not a fraud. I am who I said I was. But they couldn't do anything for me. So I literally just had to use crypto and buy a place at the Motel 6 around the corner and just not stay at the Aria at all because I didn't have that card for incidentals. Well, guess what? With this, now I could get over that hump. Now I could have a number that I could put in there for that. Or like, what about if you need to pay, like, for example, pay for baggage? You have an emergency baggage thing on the plane. You book your flight, but you got to check a bag and they charge you for it. What do you do if you can't give them cash? They don't do that stuff, not at the airport. So you have to have like a card. And that's like one of those, there's very few little bits where it's really a pain in the ass if you don't have a card. This would solve so many of those things. And yeah, I mean, I think that this is the ultimate. And I don't want to like I mean, we'll see how this thing goes, right? But I have a feeling that this could be the thing that we need to do like mass adoption, personally.
I mean, I think the DashDirect we have that I use right now is amazing.
It's already good, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I that's pretty much all I got to say about that. It's just, yeah. So and we have. I mean, we've had proposals about credit cards before, but now this is a reputable
I got it.
member of our community. It's a relatively new. We made the investment in December, but they delivered on what they promised. I mean, behind the scenes, I believe there's reason to believe that they're going to deliver on this. The incentives are aligned.
Yeah, I have to add something in because it is a crypto for card solution, and a lot of people don't understand the difference between something like this and like BitPay, for example, or Coinbase used to have their card, or the Uphold card or something, because there's a huge difference between those things. The two ones that are the two huge pieces of difference are it's non-custodial and non-KYC. So first off, if I want to use an Uphold card, I need to do KYC, which is like into the banking system, which I choose not to be. But there are people, like for example, I've been watching this fun jiu-jitsu documentary about some team that competes in jiu-jitsu tournaments, but they live at the gym. They're so dedicated, they really live on the mats. They pull a mattress out when they're done training, and that's where they live. So they don't have like a real permanent legal address, so they can't get bank accounts. So then now they can't do that. They wouldn't be able to use an Uphold card, for example, because they can't do that. But you don't need to worry about that stuff as long as you got Dash. If you use this, DashDirect proposal solution thingy, you don't need to worry about that. And the other thing is with Uphold or BitPay or whatever else, even the ones where you get to hold your balance in crypto until you swipe, they hold your balance. It's custodial. There's that risk. They have to hold on to your money. Whereas with this, you have all your Dash in your own wallet with keys you control until you want to pay at the card accepting merchant. You just buy exactly the amount of money that you need to pay for it, and that's it. There's no custodial risk and no KYC. And those two things make this late years ahead of any previous card solution for crypto, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so great. We're good. Thank you. That's wonderful. I do want to impress on our community that these investments they have staying power. Mm-hmm. So Valkyrie has their Dash Trust, and so now it's in their interest to get the trust under the Dash under management, so that they reach that threshold and are profitable, and that's going to continue for as long as there's a trust. So it's almost like planting a tree. It's just going to keep growing and growing and growing. And we don't like with what the DAO does. It makes payments and it keeps making payments and makes payments. Well, this is just one payment, and we get benefit down the road. Same thing with CrayPay. Same thing with DashDirect. We're going to get benefit down the road because we can keep using it, and we don't have to put more money in. We as in the DAO doesn't have to put more money in to keep using it. We can use it as much as we want for as long as we want, and I expect eventually it'll earn a profit. I mean, it's already pulling in revenue, but eventually it should have enough revenue to really be self-sustaining, and then we'll have this for the rest of the time. I mean,
yeah,
that's the type of investment we want, right? It's what is it called? Evergreen. Evergreen is the term they use in the news cycle, but
it's important to note a couple of things. So, Studios says when DashDirect in Canada. I don't know. It's difficult to provision, which by the visa thing is probably going to be much more difficult to do in other countries, from my understanding. But as far as the gift card thing, it's still much more difficult to have like different, because you don't just have to do different merchant networks. You also have to do like the fiat is different, right? The fiat is different in Canada. It's than in the US. So it's like now the DashDirect, do you buy 20 US dollars? No, yeah, buy 20 Canadian dollars worth, and like they have to do a geo-fenced app, and it's more complicated, but yes. So as you were talking about the long-term investments, right? That is really what really pays off, because long-term investments or long-term, it doesn't have to be literal financial investments. It could just be putting work in for a future gain, deferred benefit, low time preference type stuff. You can get the good thing is if you put a lot of work in ahead of time, when you start getting the benefits, you don't need to be doing the work at that time. It's like you get stuff to ride you out, right, over the long term, right? You invest, you save for a rainy day because rainy days do come. And I think a lot of people have been impatient with Dash, and I would definitely urge patience. I think we're in a good position here because just the way the markets have gone and everything, and all the setups and all, like, for example, Dash core groups, buffers and stuff like that, is all in a position to where Dash is good to keep trucking on for the long haul. And so that's a long enough leash on life until a lot of these longer term planning things come to fruition. But also, Dash Direct is pretty cool because it's a today thing. And Dash Direct's Visa thing, if it's funded, if they figure everything out, if everything goes, it's not guaranteed, but then that's a tomorrow thing. That's not a several years from now. It's like a, next year kind of a thing. And those are things you could bring to the table, bring to market today. Maybe Valkyrie is a more long-term before you start to see, or maybe some other diff stuff are a little bit more long-term. Maybe. I'm not saying for sure.
Well, I'm sure Valkyrie's spurred some interest in Dash. I mean, I subscribe to their newsletter. You mentioned Tron, but I've never seen the Tron price of the newsletter and the Dash price. When they, once or twice a week, they advertise the crypto prices on their newsletter. And Dash has been added for a week or two now, and I haven't seen the Tron price on their newsletter. But we're just a minority shareholder, so they're their own company. They get to decide what they do, but they're doing right by us as far as me, right by the diff. I would imagine that I would expect the community to think that Valkyrie's doing right by the community. So
yeah. Well, before I go ahead, because way up here, what's his name asked, John Clark was like, how is Dash going to market these awesome updates? I do have an answer to that, but before that, Great Wolf asked, and because we're running up, then I'm throwing out freebies here.
And I have to go in 5 minutes.
Okay, so Great Wolf, then let me just finish with this. Great Wolf asks, so looking forward to the future, are there any upcoming diff projects that's exciting Darren, or at least tickles his interest? And obviously excluding all we already talked about. Anything cool in the future that you're excited about for the diff?
Yes. There's an announcement coming out in Brazil soon, which means in the next couple weeks. Hopefully, it's coming out in 2 stages now. So the first stage that happens, the first announcement might not explicitly mention the diff, and then the second announcement would have mentioned that we were meddling in that. So out of Brazil. So I think so. The 2 investments in Brazil, the 88i, I expect to start bringing value to our community next year. So that's I think that's great. Or our community, yeah. So our community's in Brazil too. So I've always wanted the diff to be, and I think Dash is a global project. So I'm glad that we're not focused on just one jurisdiction. But it is there is a strategy we're using where once you start in a jurisdiction, you kind of want to build it out. You don't want to just put a bunch of islands where here's a little Dash thing, you want to kind of build a bunch of pieces together that can
network effects,
play off of each other. Yeah, exactly. So we have focused on Brazil. If you read the forum, I try to write out our international strategy last year for the last election cycle, and we spent a long time researching Nigeria. And when the banking regulations in Nigeria came out regarding crypto, that's when we stopped researching Nigeria.
Makes sense.
But really, we were trying to see what we could do in Nigeria for a long time, and then Rodrigo brought a few of his contacts in from Brazil, and we invested in 2, but he brought more than 2. So it's not, people are worried about Rodrigo's influence and stuff sometimes, or I see some comments about it, but he brings it, and then we have to go through everything. We got, like, 88i had a huge due diligence packet. Like, it was, it's pretty ridiculous. And it's just the volume of information that was provided. It's not ridiculous that they did that. It was just a ridiculous amount of information. It was really hard to go through. but you know, and we haven't. I mean, we say no often, and I don't like we say no a lot, and I'm like, oh yeah, we said no to this, no to that. We keep thinking about the yeses, but in my from what I understand about this whole venture capital thing is the no's are almost as important, because if you don't say no to the right people, you can't say yes to the right people. So
Yeah, that's what decision is. Decision cuts off
yeah,
one, so you can do another.
and and I mean, I hear calls to be more transparent, but we can't really divulge who we're thinking of ahead of time, because if we do say no, and we want that ability to say no, it sounds kind of bad. We're thinking about investing, and then we say no. The reason we say no could be lots of different things. They're just not a good fit. They didn't really have a buy-in for Dash. They don't really have any specific thing about Dash. We don't want to just invest in a company because we think it's going to do well. We want to advance Dash as a use case for customers. So there's all kinds of reasons we could say no, and you know, we don't really want to explain it to people. We don't want that, and we want the people who approach us to feel like they can tell us about themselves, and find if it's appropriate fit, and not be punished, or not feel like people are saying bad things about them if we say no. So we just need that. So we have to keep the no's private, and so we have to keep the things we're thinking of. I think there's 6 things on our table right now. There's no way we can fund them all, and that's new. As my starting my second year into it, we've pretty much had things come on the table as quick as we could fund them. But now it's clear that I mean, we might have to say no just because we don't have the money, which is a fine situation to be in. I mean, everything that's on the table it's still on the table. So, but it's a little bit overwhelming. But I mean, and we just have to figure out which one's the best one for Dash, and the DAO seems very well subscribed this month, and I have reason to believe it'll keep being well subscribed. So we might have to forecast not having as much from the DAO. Eventually, I think some of this will pay off and the price will go up, and I'm hoping that situation that the DAO could throw $1 million or $5 million our way.
Well, that's the thing is for that, repeatedly, one thing I always hear about people who don't know too much about Dash is they tend to be they always tend to be like, I just didn't know. Like, I didn't know that you guys are working on this stuff. I didn't know, and when you do know, they it's not so much like, yeah, I already knew that, but I needed someone to really sell me on why it's good. Like, there's a lot that don't know. And so it's a great and brief segue as we're wrapping this thing up to delivery mechanisms for the great news stuff. So as I mentioned many podcasts ago, but why not bring it up again? I'm starting this project called the Dash Marketing Hub, which is basically a incubator / bounty style open source, open collaboration project to just get Dash out there, get it promoted, get people on shows, and basically crowdsource everything promotion related. It's a very kind of radical departure from the way things are done in other ways, and I think it's very complementary to much more streamlined kind of ways of promotion. But so basically, yeah, look out for that. There's some interesting things coming, as was mentioned up there about, hey, like, what are we going to do to get this out everywhere? I mean, there's been the DIF, the newsroom, a bunch of other places have done a great job of shouting out DashDirect and getting it everywhere. But let me just say there's a lot more we could be doing, a lot more that we will be doing. And once that's all out there, I mean, the sky's the limit. So that's just all I kind of got to say about that. So I know you got to go. I don't want to be eating up all your time, Darren. But yeah, so people should follow you on Twitter, right?
Right, computing for the win, or computing FTW. And then yes, I'm on the Twitters. I'm in the Reddits. I'm actually pretty active in the DashPay Reddit. Mainly because it's not that active in general, but I just use my name on there, and I use my name everywhere. So I'm too old to keep up with pseudonyms or whatever. So
Well, cool.
So there you go.
Well, thanks for being on. Everyone, thanks for watching. Now, afterwards,
Yeah.
as is tradition, is the time for the after party, which is a conversation like this, except not recorded, not publicized, and I mean, the maximum.
Sorry, I'll miss that.
It's all right, but it's a maximum. I think the most we had was 17 people one time, and it's just like on through the night, just no limit. So sometimes until like 2, I've actually seen people on the after party like fall asleep at like 5, 6 in the morning their time as the sun's coming up because they're just on for too long. But yeah, so if you want to do that, you got to go to here. I'm gonna type in the thing. It's stay-dashy.com, gets you into the Dash Talk Discord, right? And from there, you just have to ask about it. Hey, where's the after party? What's going on? After party, blah, blah, blah. And if no one's answering you or whatever, which I probably will, just ping me on the desert links. Desert links anyway. So,
all right.
Well, that's a good cue to go off. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you in the after party. Thanks so much, Darren, and I'll see y'all pretty soon.
All right. Bye-bye.